All right, folks. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to look at sort of the flow that happens when young people commit crimes and come into contact with the police and then have to face sort of the different levels of sanctions that we see in the Youth Criminal Justice Act. So remember, guys, as of like 2003, the Youth Criminal Justice Act endeavors to restore justice and to make the community feel safe should a person between the ages of 12 and 17 and 364 days old commit a crime, right? As soon as you are, if you're younger than 12, or if you're older than 18 at the time you commit your crime, right? If you're younger than 12, basically you get dealt with here in Alberta by child services. And then if you're older than 17 years and 364 days, aka 18 or older, then you are dealt with by the adult criminal justice side, right? So anyways, let's go through this, and I'm going to point out on the screen the important things that you definitely want to know, that you need to know, okay? First thing, guys, there's sort of two sides to this diagram. I'm just going to move this down a little bit here. Right, there's sort of two sides to this diagram, and maybe I'll make it a bit smaller. There we go. We can see the whole thing. Let's go with like 80%. That looks better. Okay, so there's two sides to this diagram. There's this side right here, and then there's this side right here. We're going to look at the left side of the diagram first, okay? So we're going to branch off right here with this arrow. So first thing, guys, for you to come into contact with the youth criminal justice system is you have to have committed a crime, right? You have to have committed a crime. Hopefully you don't do something foolish like this, but it happens, right? So if it's your first crime and it's not serious, there's two things that can happen. You could be charged with an offense, or you could be not charged with an offense, okay? And I want you to understand the police here in Alberta, in Canada, under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, have a ton of discretion to decide whether they're going to, at this point when you commit your first offense, charge you or not charge you. So be kind, be polite, be forthright. Don't be a jerk to the officer, right? Because they have a lot of discretion in terms of your fate as an individual in the system. So be smart, right? If you get caught doing something stupid, be smart, be contrite, be forthright. Don't be stupid, okay? So let's go down this side. So let's say the officer arrests you, or detains you, and then, yeah, you're being held under arrest, and they decide they're going to charge you. So if this is your first offense and it's not a major crime, right? Not murder, not like a level 1 assault or anything like that, then you will face something called extrajudicial sanctions. The term extrajudicial means outside of the court system, okay? You want this to happen. You want to be on this side of the diagram, not on this side of the diagram. Over on the right side of the diagram, things get really serious. So you're arrested, you are charged with a crime, you face extrajudicial sanction. So you get extrajudicial sanctions when the extrajudicial measures aren't appropriate for what you have done, right? The system decides that what you did requires something a little bit more serious, something perhaps a little bit more personal, and you face what are called extrajudicial sanctions. So you might get community service, you might have to face counseling, you might have to meet face-to-face with the person. Let's say you smashed their car and did $5,000 worth of damage. You might have to meet with them face-to-face and, you know, understand the impacts of your actions and have them perhaps read a statement to you, an impact statement in terms of what happened and the impact that of what you did. And how it affects their life, right? Lots of different ways they can handle it. So I'm not going to read through all this because you can no doubt read. And if you complete those sanctions, and typically it's in a 3 to 6 month time period, the charges that you are charged with up here get what's called stayed. Your charges are stayed or dropped. If you complete it, your charges are dropped. You don't get any sort of name in the system. Okay, so if you complete the sanction, charges are dropped, and then that's the end of it. Hopefully you've learned your lesson. You're not going to come into contact with the criminal justice system anymore. However, if you don't complete your sanctions here, then it goes to court. Okay, so if this ever happens to you, do what you're told to do. Follow through, get it done. And if you don't do it to the satisfaction of the system, you're going to end up in the formal court proceedings, right? And you don't want to do that. You do not want to face a judge. I promise you. I've been to youth court, not as a young person, but as a teacher. I used to teach legal studies, and I used to take my students once a year to the courts in downtown Edmonton, and it was just kid after kid after kid. And man, I'll tell you what, I'm sure nothing makes you feel as helpless as when a judge is determining your life for you, dictating what you have to do, who you can and can't see, right? It's a very humbling thing. Okay, now let's go to the other side of this. So let's say, guys, your first offense is not serious. Well, the police officer can choose to not charge you with anything. And if that's the case, they will then use what are called the extrajudicial measures. So I like to think of sanctions as more serious than extrajudicial measures. So if you face an extrajudicial measure, you might get a warning by the police, right? They will give you a warning and say, hey, you know, understand this, you know, you do this again, this is what can happen, and hopefully that's going to set you on the right path. You might get a formal police warning. You might get referred to a program just in case, right? Just in case. Or you might get a Crown caution. All of these are serious. They're not as serious as this, but you know, if you're contrite, you're forthcoming, you're demonstrating an acknowledgement of doing wrong, then the hope is in the justice system that this is enough to get you back on the right path. And with your measures being completed, right? If you complete the measure and you take it seriously, that's the end of it, right? That is the end of it. However, if you're referred to a program and you don't complete the measure, guess where you end up? In court, right? If the system tells you you have to do something, whether it is extrajudicial sanctions or extrajudicial measures, you must do it. And if you don't, to court you go. So again, you do something stupid, right? You're under 18 years of age. Just do what you're told to do, and it will be okay. Down this side, right? You don't face charges. Down this side, you only do if you don't complete your sanction. So that's the good side. That's the left side of this scenario. Let's talk about the right side. So sometimes the actions that youths engage in, right, which are criminal, are egregious. They are considered to be not good, or you're a repeat offender. In that case, guys, you're going to go down the right side of this diagram, and I'll tell you what, it's not fun. Okay, so charges are laid against you, right? So now you're facing something serious. Now a Crown prosecutor, right, a prosecutor representing the province of Alberta is now looking at your case. And they're determining if there's enough evidence to proceed with a formal court proceeding. So if there's sufficient evidence, then you end up in court. So there's three ways to end up in court. You're a repeat offender, or it's violent. You don't complete your extrajudicial measures, or you don't complete your extrajudicial sanctions, okay? Now, if there's not enough evidence, according to the Crown prosecutor, then you follow this path right here, and it's all done, right? There's a mistake or whatever it happens to be. New evidence comes up, right, that they thought, you know, was a sort of open and shut case, but all of a sudden something comes forward, and you're found to be, in fact, not this person they thought you were, or you didn't do the crime. right? Boom, you go to the end. Now, with sufficient evidence, right? If there is, you have a formal court proceeding. You'll end up in front of a judge. You're going to get your little butt reamed out by the judge, and then you will be facing a youth sentence. And again, guys, this can range from a whole bunch of different things. Okay, you might get community service, you might have to face counseling, and I mean, we saw that over here on the sanction side. You might end up in prison, right? Now, not adult prison, but you might be remanded as a minor. You might face possibility of having a criminal record, or you might have to engage in restitution. Let's say you've done property damage. You might have to work until you can pay that property damage off for that individual. So from all of this, ladies and gentlemen, I want you please to understand there's a number of, when it comes to your first offense, they really want to keep you out of the system. They want to keep you out of the courts. They want you to learn your lesson. They want you to grow from the experience, and the system wants you to not come back in it. It wants to keep you out of jail. It wants to keep you out of being confined, because as you remember, hopefully you remember, under the Youth or the Young Offenders Act, the YOA, it was found that, you know, young kids who end up being in custody end up sort of becoming better criminals. And that's not good. Remember, guys, the whole point here is you're young, you're savable, and we want to turn you into a useful, productive member of society that can have a fruitful life in the future. Okay? So, guys, go through this a couple of times. Make sure you just understand sort of the general gist of it, right? And again, I cannot stress enough, the police have an incredible amount of discretion if it's your first offense and it's non-violent, to basically either make this really not easy, but definitely not as hard as if they could, right? They could make your life very, very difficult if they want, and they have that leniency to be able to do that. So, you know what, guys, respect police officers. They have a hard job. They see the worst of everything. So please, 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 you know, you come into contact with the police, thank them for what they do, right? They are public service members and they're sacrificing for us, right? So, okay, anyways, that's a quick little rundown of the sort of flow of the Youth Criminal Justice Act. And as always, if you have questions, hit me up on email. Peace. I love you guys, and we'll talk to you later.